Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Best Eldercare. I'm your host, Razav Chaudhry, and I want to start by saying a few words around how we came about to start this series. So it's really been growing for quite some time, just a feeling. And we felt like now, this feeling fits the moment. We wanted to just look forward and share and shine a spotlight on some of the amazing work that we've seen that's been taking place in our industry, and that we think can really make a big difference in the quality of care that we provide to elders. Then we thought about the format that we should use. We thought, okay, we could do this as a podcast where we're sharing people's knowledge across the world. And then we thought, well, at least for the first few, let's try to make this interactive. So here I am at 11 o'clock at night in Amsterdam in the Netherlands with an audience that's spanning across the globe. So it's Thursday morning now in Australia, and it's Wednesday afternoon or late evening in the US. And we have an audience, a group of people that have come together and to learn and share our experiences around the use of virtual reality, immersive technology in elder care. And we're really, I think, very lucky that through my colleague Caroline Taplin, who's helping with the questions today, question and answer, that we were able to reach out to Dr. Tanya Petrovich of Dementia Australia, who I really think has been doing some amazing work for the last 10 years now in this space. Dementia Australia, for anybody that doesn't know, is I think in Australian terminology, you call it a peak body. I call it a consumer organization, but I would call it kind of, maybe taking away those definitions that are nationally or kind of nuanced in that way, a representative organization that really represents everybody that's impacted by dementia. In her role as the business innovation manager, she's responsible for making sure that the products and services that Dementia Australia delivers support living quality and improve living life quality of people with dementia and people who support those people. Today, I think her focus for quite some time has been on technology that helps to improve the learning experience, the learning capability of professional caregivers, and the outcomes, so the quality of care that professional caregivers provide. But I think in this journey of using technology, she's come in contact with all the use scenarios, the main use scenarios that we see around using virtual reality in elder care. And I think just this fact that she works for a representative industry organization and the kind of prism through which they see things, that she brings with this 10 years now of experience working with this technology, a really amazing knowledge base, great objectivity, which I think is very important, and just speaking to her before, an amazing passion also just for her work. So I'm really pleased and grateful that we're able to talk today. Before the session, I sent an email out which just shared an article which is a preview to the topic. In case people haven't had a chance to look at it, we kind of briefly sketched out 3 broad scenarios. The first is using VR as a tool to help people appreciate the lived experience or some aspects of the lived experience of people with dementia. The second, where I'd like to give a little bit more attention than the other scenarios, is the training and development perspective. And I'd like to give that emphasis just because I think it's underexploited or underreported, however you want to think of it. And then the last scenario, which is quite prominent right now, and with good reason, I think, the possibility for VR to enrich life quality and provide awe-inspiring life moments for people with lived experience. Rather than kind of go on any further, I think maybe it's a good moment just to ask Tanya to jump in, and maybe we should just pick up the thread with a question around when was the first moment that you began to work with this technology, or what sparked your interest and how did that all flow? What did you learn from that first experience? I think it was 10 years ago now, right?
Yeah. So thank you for that introduction, Rosette. So I think I just want to reiterate that the purpose of Dementia Australia is to represent people living with dementia and support them and empower them to live the best quality of life that they can. And with that in mind, always, whatever we did was how do we do, in particular, education so that we get better quality of care and therefore a better quality of life for people living with dementia. So that is the focus always, because I'm always concerned when we talk about technology that people feel that we're chasing the latest technology, which was not the case. It was that we really wanted to improve the way that we deliver education. So back in 2012, I met with a person called Mandy Salomon, who was a PhD student at Swinburne University here in Melbourne. And Mandy at that time wanted to explore virtual reality and virtual environments to see, does that actually relate, or is it useful for a person living with dementia? Will they actually respond to it? Will they, understand how to interact with it? Will they be capable of interacting with it? So that was a really first step for me into this whole world of virtual reality and, does it relate, or is it useful to us as an organisation? So before I go further, what I'll do is I'll show you a little video that Mandy prepared. I think this was 2014, after she had done some work and she had collected some information from interacting with people. So I'll show you this short video and then take it further from there. So 1 second. And we need sound. Okay, sorry, let me just. I'll go back. Oh, no, not going to work.
Hello, I'd like to introduce you to AVID, which stands for Applying Virtual Environments to Dementia Care. Well-being for people with dementia is all about engagement. What's not known is if they can become engaged within a 3D digital environment. So my PhD investigates if this can be done and what might be the optimum way to configure one. I believe that people with dementia will be able to use these environments to tell their stories and, importantly, exercise choice about the way they decide to go about it.
Push the notes? Yes, try.
Music's terribly important. It's one of the last areas of the memory that is retained. By combining iPad apps and music, we can create a context that stimulates our participants to try the application.
Jewish music, shall we try that? Yes. Click on that button with the arrow. That's it.
And at the same time, we get to see what they can do with the iPad. Can they pinch? Can they swipe? Can they tap? These are all very important things to understand in devising an interactive virtual environment that works for them. The environment's very much based around the home. We're looking at all the kinds of objects and places and favourite things that people have in their houses. The home is not just bricks and mortar, it also conjures up a place of safety and a place of familiarity, a place of family. So many of these are the values that people retain and want to inhabit again. With the virtual world, they can do that. I'm also looking at the role a virtual companion might play, and participants from our trials so far have shown a very strong interest in this.
She's singing a modern song. That's a voice and a half.
That's a voice and a half.
Where did they get this wonderful thing from? What next, say? Never cease to be.
So I hope people heard that. I got a little message that it wasn't the best quality. I'm so sorry. I can't see what else I can do to optimise it, but that work with Mandy really opened my eyes to the possibility of what virtual reality could do, and observing how people living with dementia interacted with the various tools that she showed them during that process. It was really exciting to see that people with that mid to late stage dementia were very engaged with this medium. And so it really made us think about the potential of this. But I suppose the first thing that we did was we thought, well, talking to the developers, I should say, the conversation with the developers was, so developers of games are very good educators, was one of the comments they made to me. And at the time I thought, what do you mean? I don't understand. Why is a game developer a good educator? And they said, well, if you observe your children playing games, they don't read instructions on how to play the game. They actually learn how to play the game through the game itself. And to me, that was a pivotal moment, because that made me think, with children playing Pokemon and learning how to play Pokemon and wanting to, do better by doing more, gameplay and learning more. I just thought, wow, isn't that amazing? What a powerful tool. If you could harness that energy of wanting to learn more and actually getting more skills as you go along, wouldn't that be powerful for educating people on how to deliver better dementia care, or in fact any education at all, but particularly in dementia care? How do we harness that to get people to be engaged in learning and really improve the way that they deliver care? And so we started having a conversation about, can we create a virtual experience of dementia such that the person that's delivering the care is entered into that world, and then they see from the point of view of the person living with dementia what's going on. And from that, they will, without being told, they will understand what needs to be done to improve the quality of care. And that's really where we started with the virtual dementia experience. So again, I've got a little video. This doesn't have any sound. It just shows you a bit of the visual. So I need to explain that this is back in 2012. So 13 was really the year that we started showing it to people. And we created a room because we clearly needed to deliver the education to a large number of people. So we couldn't really have a scenario where people were putting headsets on and having their own experience at that time. We needed people to be in a room and have the experience in the room, because at that time the headsets were called Oculus Rift, and they were massive headsets, and they were connected to a desktop computer, very clunky. It wasn't something that you could easily get around to people. So we came up with a room that we created in Victoria called the First Walkley Dementia Learning Centre. And essentially it's a room that has a massive screen. It's 10 metres long, 2.5 metres high. And you can see a person standing in front of the screen there, and they've got their hand up and they can see their hand on the screen. So you can interact with this virtual world, but you are standing in a room, and the screen actually moves you through the scenario. And essentially the scenario is that you are a person living with dementia and you are wanting to have a shower. So you need to find the bathroom in this home. And as you're looking for the bathroom, you go through all the symptoms of dementia. Now, I think if I show you the next one, we'll be able to see. Okay, come along. Yes, good. So here you can see how you start moving through the scenario and moving down towards the bathroom to find the bathroom door. And some of the things that happen is that as you come to the bathroom door, there are in fact 2 doors there. Now, which of these doors is the bathroom door when there are 2 doors that are identical? And that just makes people start thinking about, okay, so in my facility, we have, you know, corridors with 20 doors that all look the same. And now we're telling the person to go back to their room, and which of those rooms is their bedroom? So it was a really eye-opening experience for people, because whilst we had described these things before, now they're actually experiencing them for themselves. And it really made them think about, wow, so that means in our facility, some of the issues are that finding my bedroom is a difficulty, or the noise. We have a shower scenario where the noise of the shower is really overwhelming, and then they start thinking about noise and how noise impacts people, and facilities can be very noisy places. And so, you know, without telling people, they started telling us about their facility and how they could improve the quality of care for people living with dementia. So for us, this was really exciting, because now we were getting people really engaged in the learning and actually thinking it through for themselves and coming up with solutions for themselves. So, you know, is this a good way of delivering education? I think without doubt, you know, virtual reality has the power of engaging people and exciting people into thinking about how they can, you know, problem solve for themselves, because dementia care really requires a great skill in problem solving, because the person often cannot explain what's going on in their world. You really need to be a good problem solver in order to support the person well. And so this is a great way of teaching people. Now, we have done some evaluations of this work, and the evaluations have told us that it is a good way of delivering education. What is hard to do, though, is post the education, does that person go back into their workplace and deliver care in a better way? That's a very difficult thing to measure. But we do know from other studies, so there was a study that was done on colour blindness, and it was done, I think it was Stanford University, and what they did was they developed a virtual reality of colour blindness, and they taught people in 2 ways about colour blindness. One group had the virtual experience, the other group was just told about colour blindness. At the end of that, they were put in a scenario where they had to assist someone with colour blindness. And what they found was the people who had gone through the virtual experience actually spent twice as long assisting the person and had a better insight into what was going on for that person than the ones that had only just been told about it. So there was that connection between virtual reality and actually getting an outcome that was superior, because they were spending more time with the person and getting a better understanding for what was going on for that person. We then went on to, when the technology changed and improved and headsets came along, we then moved that experience onto a headset. We've got a program called EDIE, which stands for Educational Dementia Immersive Experience, but also it's EDIE, the person living with dementia. And when you put the headset on, you become EDIE, the person living with dementia. And you wake up in the middle of the night, you're in bed, it's 3 o'clock in the morning, and you need to find the bathroom because you need to go to the toilet. And then again, what does that mean for a person living with dementia? Well, if there's low lighting, if there's lots of noise, there's many issues that can occur. And so you go through that scenario. And I think some of the really powerful things are like a dark mat on a light coloured floor. We speak a lot about this, that the surface of the floor is important, because if there's a dark patch, the person may show a reticence to go in that direction, or they may not wish to go in that direction, and people don't understand why. But often it's just the surface appears to be a hole. So a dark mat on a light coloured floor can appear to be a hole, and so they don't want to go that way. And, you know, for a carer who's not looking at that and not understanding that, they're getting frustrated that, you know, we just need to get to the bathroom. Let's just go. What's happening here? But you can bring that to life in virtual reality, which you can't in an ordinary classroom setting. So by bringing that to life in the virtual experience, it's like the penny drops for people. And they immediately start thinking, oh my goodness. I remember one gentleman in particular who was a husband of a lady living with dementia, and he said, so when she tells me it's a hole, it really looks like a hole for her. And yeah, absolutely. So amazing that, you know, he was even being told what the issue was and he didn't get it. So yes, the power of virtual reality, I think is amazing, and I think it has many applications that we are yet to
yeah, absolutely.
design.
Absolutely, yeah. I was a couple of years ago, I went one of these days where the parents could go with the kids, you know, on a school outing, and we went to a museum here in the Netherlands, where I don't know if you know, most of it is basically land reclaimed, for want of a better word, from the sea, below sea level, and they have these kind of big kind of dikes that run really the length of the land, you know, and it's called the waterlelie. It's like the water defense line, and they also used it as a barrier in war. You know, they would just open and flood the land so that, you know, invaders found it difficult. And so we went on this virtual reality experience where you sat and you had your feet off the ground, and then you put these glasses on, and you know, you were flying in the air. You took off, came out of the museum, flew in the air. There were seagulls, and you saw these barriers. And you kind of, you know, saw the land being flooded, you know. It was amazing to see. I mean, just, you know, for the kids, you know, just learning, it would be completely boring, right? Just some words in a textbook, you know, and nothing that you could feel or empathize with that would trigger your imagination to go further. And, you know, immediately they were there. And, you know, our eldest who was doing it, she was batting the seagulls away and all kinds of fantastic stuff. It was brilliant. So, I mean, I just wanted to kind of bring that in as another example of, you know, how you trigger imagination and empathy, and then things can snowball, and understanding can just come out, and interest and curiosity can be sparked in such a way that you otherwise can't. You know, it's fantastic.
And absolutely, you know, in terms of aged care, I recall, so where I came from, I had entered, I started working with Dementia Australia at the end of 2008, and so I'd spent a couple of years delivering the education, and often we'd be in a classroom where you had people who had been working in the industry for 15, 20 years, and they sort of looked at you like, you can't teach me anything about dementia. I've been doing this for a long time, so you can teach me nothing. And I remember always thinking, gosh, you know, how do we get through to these people? And I really feel like the virtual reality, you know, really takes that away, because all of a sudden they're stepping into this world and they're, wow, okay, I had made assumptions and I didn't realise I'd made assumptions, because people telling them doesn't work. But when you put them in that scenario, it does open their eyes to what's actually going on.
Yeah, that's absolutely. Yeah. I sometimes have this, exactly. I sometimes have this feeling where I think to myself, yeah, but can't you just, you know, think, how would I like to be treated? You know, if I was there, how would I like to be? And then sometimes, I mean, I just stick with then the family example. I'm in these situations and there's too much going on. Maybe I haven't slept enough. It's, you know, it's busy. End of the day, just having that dip, and then, you know, something that I'm not really having the mood for is happening, and I'm just short. You know, I can't put myself in the position of the other person. You know, when actually it's probably exactly the most important moment to put everything aside and just be there, you know, be available to this person. And especially for people, I think, who are so emotionally open as people with dementia, then, you know, it's so important that you can put these things aside, that you can just have that empathy, you know. It's so you mentioned EDIE. And I know that's like I guess you have like a workshop, and so you can, I think I'd love you to say, you know, who's using it, where where and how. But I know you also have other avatars, Ted and Annie. Can you kind of explain a little bit more about what they do?
Sure. So EDIE is a 3-hour workshop, and essentially the workshop is around the impact of dementia and how lands for the person, but giving people the virtual experience in waking up in the middle of the night and trying to find the bathroom. Then we talk about, so how can we improve that? How do we improve the environment? How do we improve the way we communicate? All the things that we can do to improve the care. And then they have the experience again in that improved scenario. So, with not so much noise, with a better environment, with a few little things in the environment that can help signpost where the bathroom is and things like that. And so, again, it's just about unpacking all the things that we can do to deliver better care. And look, the feedback that we get from those sessions is remarkable. And we've even had, we've worked with some of the universities on bigger projects where they've used things like cognitive behaviour therapy in aged care for people living with dementia and their family carers. And they've used the EDIE education as well for the professional carers. And they came back with observations that said, the care has changed completely after the experience. We can see how they're spending more time and thinking it through more. So that was just fabulous to hear. And we get lots of other anecdotal positive outcomes with EDIE. And what happened was, so we released EDIE in Australia in 2016 in Melbourne and Victoria, and slowly it started to be used across Australia. Because at that time we weren't Dementia Australia, we were Alzheimer's Australia, and there was state bodies, and anyway, now we're national and it's everywhere. And we were approached by a company from Canada and asked, would it be possible for them to deliver EDIE in Canada? And we agreed, so EDIE's being delivered in Canada. And then soon after we had Singapore, the Czech Republic, Austria, currently speaking to some other countries. New Zealand is coming up shortly, and Poland. So really, just amazing. I just look back and think, wow, it's really grown incredibly. And obviously, others see the power of the education as well. So with that, we thought, okay, clearly virtual reality is a great way, a great impactful way to educate, because you've only got people for 3 hours. And at the end of that 3 hours, we want them to go away and deliver better quality of care. So rather than spend 3 hours telling people, let's give an experience to people and let's see them go away and do better. So how can we use this technology in other ways? And that really led to a thing called A Day in the Life. And A Day in the Life is where we introduced avatars. And the avatars were two. One was Ted, a person living with dementia, and the other was Priya, who is a caregiver. And we thought, let's create a dining experience, so in a facility, dining experience, and well, let's see how that lands for Ted, the person living with dementia, versus the caregiver. And look, I'll show you this scenario. So you won't see it obviously from the two perspectives. You're seeing it in a normal sort of 2D perspective, but you'll understand better, I think, if you see the scenario. So let me just share this. Here it is. So let's just share this.
Oh, good. At least Ted's here. About 20 minutes early, but it's fine. Oh, good. You're already awake. Ted and Mary.
Priya, Ted's a feed.
Yeah, sure. No worries. Okay. It smells good. Looks like chicken. Again. Here we go. Ted? Oh. Can someone get the blinds? Light's right in your eyes. Here you go. Ted, I want you to have a go. It's all set. Okay?
Where are you off to?
Ted, just not interested today, are you? Ted, I've just got to finish up. Give me a moment and then I'll take you back to your room, okay? All right. Have another go.
All right.
Is Ted all finished up with his dinner?
Yeah. Yeah, I think he's done. You can take his plate away.
So that scenario, we see that with the headsets, firstly from Priya's point of view, very busy care worker, assisting two people, wanting obviously to assist in the best way she can at the time, but she is distracted with a lot of other things. And then you see that land for Ted and how that dining experience is for Ted. And I think one of the most powerful bits is, as Ted, you go to get up out of the chair and all of a sudden you push back down into the chair. You don't see that there's a person behind you and that person's concerned that, you need to eat your dinner and therefore you should be seated. There's none of that explanation for poor Ted. He just feels being slammed back into this chair. And so how that lands for a person living with dementia, it then, in a group scenario, we have a discussion about that and people start reliving, what happens in their own facility. And, to me, that's the really powerful stuff. And they take that and they immediately think, wow, okay, in our facility, there's lots of noise, there's lots of activity, there's, all the things that do not add up to a really good dining experience. So from there, we took Ted and we decided that another area that we really needed or wanted to improve was communication. Communication, it sort of sounds like such a simple thing, and we tell people what good communication is, and we can do role plays and all of that. But actually having a good communication experience with a person living with dementia is very challenging. And so we've created Avatar Ted, who is artificially intelligent, meaning that you can have a conversation with Ted. The conversation is based on a scenario where you need to convince Ted to have a shower. But you need to invite him to have a shower and Ted needs to agree. And there are some really good communication skills that you need to do. Things like introducing yourself, explaining why you're there, just some really simple things that unfortunately in the busy activity of a facility are often forgotten. And so when you forget to do the simple things, Ted will then start getting very angry and frustrated. And so the scenario can play out where you get a very adverse result. And that's the power of these virtual experiences. You can have that without causing any damage to anyone. So we can learn through our mistakes. We can have a really negative impact and you'll learn, you know what, I won't do that again. And then you go back and try again and hopefully come back with a more positive experience. And, through that, I think experience, it's a really powerful way for people to learn. That's available online really to anyone at any time. And I'm really excited by this because I just think the potential of this communication is really huge. And it's one of the main issues. When you look at, so we have a service in Australia called Dementia Behaviour Management Services. And they talk about, you know, one of the main issues being the way that people communicate. You know, it's poor communication skills from the carers that causes issues. So yeah, that's where we're at the moment. We've got the avatar online.
No, that's really, I think it's amazing. I mean, I actually felt emotionally attached to Ted's experience during dinner. So during that dining experience. So that's for sure it works. What I'm curious about is how do you, just the maker in me, you know, I've been involved in making some products here and there. How do you come up with an avatar? How do you, you know, create a scenario?
So all of our work is based on what we experience in the work environment. So we are in facilities, well, before COVID, we were in facilities all the time and understanding the issues that were at hand. So, you know, we could see what the concerns were for people living with dementia, and we could see what the concerns were for the workforce. And so that is really where we start. What is the issue that we're trying to resolve here? Because there's no point in creating, you know, a learning experience that isn't, you know, going to have any impact on quality of care. So what is the problem? And then we look at how do we fix that problem and what technology would be a good way of addressing that. Or it may not be technology, it might be just doing what we do in a better way. You know, it could be improving the way that you deliver your education through your own communication, but that's another story. But so really we start with what is the problem, and dining, if you look at the lists of most complaints in aged care in Australia, dining is always up there. It's always in the top 5. You know, the family's either not happy with the dining, with the food, or the experience for the person living with dementia is poor. So that was one of the reasons we chose dining. It was an obvious issue in the industry, and the Royal Commission actually reiterated that was an issue, and they're actually, the Department of Health is currently looking at how to improve the dining experience themselves. So, you know, we know that this is an issue, and we felt that the best way to address it is get people to understand what the problem is, show them, you know, what is going on for the person living with dementia. Now let's talk about how do we fix this.
Yeah, absolutely. It really makes sense. I mean, I've really noticed as something, I always feel like an outsider. That's just something that I have as a person, you know, but I've been in quite a few nursing homes around Europe, and I've noticed really that, of course, there's often a pressure to just be efficient, you know, get things done, you know, by a certain time, at a certain scale. And sometimes it's just difficult to stop and have a conversation or take that moment. And, you know, so you can have all the best intentions, but the reality doesn't allow you somehow to be there, you know.
That's true. And so we as a you know, an advocacy, what we decided to do is it's not enough just to give people education. We need to start advocating on behalf of people living with dementia. So wherever we can, we get involved with the CEOs and the boards of organisations to get them to have a look at these experiences, understand what the issues are, because they do need to start addressing this. And that's, I think that's also, really important. You know,
yeah, absolutely, yeah.
Yeah, and the government, wherever we can, we get ministers out and we show them the work that we're doing to get to the issues out so that they understand what the issues are. And I think, you know, the Royal Commission was really quite powerful. Where the solutions are at the moment, I'm not entirely sure, but at least there's a better understanding of what the issues are. And now we can start talking about how do we bring a solution about?
Can I ask you, just because not everybody is aware of what the Royal Commission was?
Sure. So in Australia, well, there was a major, catastrophe at a nursing home in Australia, which actually brought about that Royal Commission into aged care. So the Royal Commission went, I think it was across 2.5 years, where they were asking the industry to come forward with any concerns they had, as well as the consumers, the concerns they had, and they heard a huge number of submissions from all participants. And, there were some really dreadful stories of people being neglected and some people being harmed, and it was, really some terrible, terrible stories. But the recommendations after that hearing were that essentially the industry, there's many recommendations, but if I summarise it, that the industry needs to, one, pay the carers in a more appropriate manner because the pay is low, and that the facilities themselves need to change to be more home-like, and so the size of the facility. There was actually a disagreement between there was 2 commissioners involved. One commissioner felt that we should have more home-like homes, so the smaller scale homes. And the other one said that no, actually there are, at times need for larger facilities. So there's a bit of a discrepancy there, but certainly home-like facilities are going to be promoted. So smaller sized facilities will be promoted. And there are people in Australia at least doing that already. And, you can see that the facilities that have smaller groups of people, under 15 people in a group, are doing quite well because that helps to address those issues where, lack of time. Because if you have at least a group home which has less diversity, it helps with some of those issues. Anyway, there are many recommendations out of the Royal Commission.
Here in the Netherlands, we had the same thing, I think maybe 2014 or so, where there was a lot of, there was 2 changes. One was a move towards helping people to stay at home longer independently. And the other was a move to, you're calling it household model, so I'll just keep to the same terminology. Of course, It's like a challenge, like you have this huge kind of buildings and you can't just get rid of them, so it's not small households, it's trying to create households within often large buildings. And that's an architectural design, culture, policy. So it's a process. There's lots of things, right? It's also just making sure you have the same staff in the same section to build relationships, all this kind of stuff that needs to happen. But I think they're all really positive movements because we really see the difference between organizations that have taken that seriously versus organizations that haven't,
Yes.
You feel it immediately as you walk in.
You do.
Yeah. There's
very similar outcomes for us.
Yeah. There's no fake.
We're on the same trajectory. Sorry.
Yeah, fantastic. Yeah, I think that's really great. Hey, so it's been a long time since I did anything kind of academic, but somehow I feel like I should make a hypothesis. That VR in training, in education, learning, has the potential to offer a certain kind of consistency in the training experience, certainly in training people in interactions, a certain measurability. You mentioned, of course, that, you can't measure what happens once people go into the working environment, but you can certainly get some metrics at the end of a training.
Yeah.
And because, you mentioned, for example, TED is available online, I could imagine, some kind of commodification, for want of a better word, productization, where you could think that this could be scaled, you could have repeatable kind of processes and results. So my hypothesis is that in 5 or 10 years, that VR could be an integral part of the education process to prepare people for what is, you know, it's a huge gap. There's a huge gap, right? Preparing people to do this well, to do this in, you know, person-centered way, in a way that, you know, where you take the time, you find, you know, with nuance, that moment to build a relationship and to, you know, make a connection and try to get to know that person, right? I mean, it can be so transactional, and yet you need to be able to do it, right? I mean,
yes.
Yeah.
It's funny you should mention that, because our team, who did a bit of an evaluation with the TED, the communication avatar, they said that when they were doing that, you could actually pick who was good at their job and who was not.
Okay.
Because you could see the way they interacted in the communication with TED, who was being person-centered and who was, you know, trying to get the right outcome, whereas others, and incredibly, I couldn't believe it, because these were people working in aged care. You know, there was one who was actually abusive to the avatar. I thought, unbelievable. And made a comment at the end about, you know, sometimes you just need to be really firm with them.
Oh. Wow. Okay, yeah. Okay. Hey,
so yeah, it is, you're quite right. I think there is an opportunity there to use this type of technology to screen, you know, before we put our efforts into training someone into the industry. You know, are they the right person?
Yeah. Okay. Oh, fantastic. Good that you say that. Yeah, I hadn't thought of that. Yeah. Hey, there's this last scenario, which is all the rage now, and I'm a big fan. You know, like if I go to a concert and I have a nice experience, I'm kind of happy for a whole month. You know.
Yeah.
If I go for a nice walk and I've seen a great sunset, the forest, the beach. Here you don't have mountains, unfortunately, but the mountains, I love mountains, you know. I'm happy for quite a long time, you know. I'm just in a good light mood. So this feeling of awe that you get from, you know.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not, of course, a cure-all, you know. I mean,
no.
Yeah.
But yes, look, and look, where we went with that was, when we were doing the work with Mandy a long time ago, we did have an Oculus Rift set, you know, quite a heavy headset, and this clunky computer. And we were working in facilities, meaning that we were working with people in that mid to late stage of dementia. And our experience was that a lot of people in that sort of range weren't, they were, you know, just ordinarily, they're quite anxious. And to then try to put this clunky headset on that person was not something we wanted to do. We decided, yeah, no, we're not going there. It's too risky. It could have an adverse effect. We didn't want to add to the person's anxiety. And really, for anyone, when you're confronted with new technology, there's a little bit of anxiety there about, how do I use this thing? Is this going to be pleasant, or is this going to be unpleasant? So I think it does have a place, but you need to be careful. Is this person at an earlier stage and is understanding what's going on, and, you know, I can walk them through what's going to happen? Because the way that you introduce the new technology to the person is paramount. It's very, very important that we do that in the right way, because if the introduction is not right, the person will feel that great fear, and you could get an adverse result. So the introduction staff need to be trained in the technology to ensure that they're very comfortable with the technology. Then the way that they introduce the person to the technology, they need to understand how to do that in the most appropriate way. And if they have all of that, then absolutely go ahead and gently introduce these scenarios to the people where you think it's appropriate, where you've done the assessment and you think, yep, this is an appropriate use of this technology, because the outcomes can be amazing. As you said, for some people, it can be almost life-changing, because they've been in the facility for a while and they get on, you know, put the headset on, and all of a sudden they're in the Netherlands and, you know, visiting their homeland and having a wonderful time. Yeah. So it absolutely has great power, but we just need to be really careful with it.
Yeah. Thank you. I think that's really lovely, the way you put it. It's great. Yeah. Thank you. Hey, before we open to questions, I just wanted to ask you, in terms of your, somehow we've touched on it, but I think it's nice to just ask explicitly. What do you hope or think, kind of will happen in the next few years with the use of this technology? I mean, you're really much closer to it than I am, so.
It's getting, in some respects, it's getting cheaper to create virtual experiences. But so some of the things that I'm seeing is, if you like, generic experiences where, you can actually create a virtual experience very easily, but it's almost like a film and you're going through a film. And that's not what we've been trying to do. So because film is quite, if you like, an inexpensive way of using virtual reality. You can have a film and have that film experience. What we've been trying to do is get people to interact, to have a true experience where they're interacting. And the way that you interact could lead to different end results. And this is what I'm really keen for us to do more of, that I have an experience in a virtual reality that might be different to your experience, because the things that I choose to do in there lead to good outcomes for the person living with dementia, for example, whereas somebody else does it and they choose not such good ways forward and there's an adverse end result. Because to me, that is what leads to learning. I make a decision, I see how that decision plays out. So if we can do more of that type of virtual reality, that to me is really exciting. That to me is really good education, because I have problem solved, I put it into action and I can see the end result of that action. But that is really hard to do, can I say? It sounds so easy. I mean, creating Ted the avatar in the conversation, talk with Ted. I remember when we first started talking about that, and I thought it's going to be easy, just get online, talk to Ted. And the developers, I remember, kept putting up all these issues. Yes, but he might repeat himself. I thought, fabulous. So people with dementia repeat themselves. It's not a problem. Yes, but he might repeat himself in a way that, isn't quite right. And they kept bringing all those issues up. And I thought, it can't be that hard. But actually, when we went through the process, it was harder than I thought. Much, much harder. Because you need to essentially, at every point, you need to think of the myriad of things that people can say. Like saying, good morning, Ted. That's one way of saying good morning. You can say, hi, Ted. You say, good day, Ted. There's a million ways of saying good morning. And it just really starts multiplying as you go through the conversation. The things people can say at different points is enormous. So it is a lot harder than I thought it would be. But I feel like that is the direction. And I think with artificial intelligence and the way that's developing, that will be the area, I think, of greatest improvement in the future, because that will allow us to create these amazing scenarios that are really lifelike and a good challenge and learning environment.
Wow, thank you. Yeah, that really makes sense to me also. And this thing about funding, there's one of the things that really, this whole challenge, there is a challenge, right? You have a challenge. It's a global challenge of educating and training people to deliver quality care to people we love. Yeah, people who are vulnerable, right? And I feel like that can get a lot of attention given the opportunity that this technology provides. It's a global challenge, right? It's not. It is. It's massive.
Indeed.
I mean, even amongst the very few rich countries that there are in the world, it's a big challenge. I mean, and then you have all the other countries, right? So
yes.
And 10 years is very early in the evolution of a technology. I mean, I think about, I mean, my inspiration here is Total Recall and The Matrix.
Yeah.
Because just using the imagination in terms of how far you can really you can push something, right? And the more you get used to something, the more opportunities you treat. I'm going to pull an example in, which is, I mean, it's not that delicate, but I was talking to a friend yesterday and saying, oh yeah, I'm going to do, you know, this session. We're going to talk about VR in Eldercare. And he was saying, oh yeah, here we're, I mean, he's a farmer. And he said, yeah, we're using VR for the cows so that in the winter, when they're in the stall, they get like these views of grass, and that helps them milk better.
Wow.
So just in terms of like, you know, all the myriad of uses, I mean, I didn't even imagine that this was possible. And of course, agriculture is a massive industry, right? So then
indeed,
you look for a solution, right?
Wow, that is amazing.
Yeah, incredible, right?
It is.
All right, now, hey, everyone, we have, well, for me, you have as much time as you like, but using the question and answer feature on your Zoom screen, please feel free to ask questions or raise your hand and just say, I'd like to ask a question. And we will try to open your mic. What we noticed earlier was that there were really some bugs. So it might be that when we try to open the mic, something goes wrong, in which case you just type in the question. Well, for myself, you know, while you're thinking whether you want to ask a question or have a question to ask, what I'm quite interested in knowing is if a few different things, you know, I'm interested just for myself, right? What I noticed here in the Netherlands, but also just Northern Europe, was that with this experience, you know, the virtual dementia experience, we had similar things like that here. It was a little bit like a gimmick. It was really like in the press and big at the beginning. But then you didn't hear about it anymore. I don't know who else offers this experience now that where you could, you know, actually try to experience what it's like to, or some aspect of what it's like.
Do you know that that was a concern for us? Because when we released it originally, we actually released 2 versions of EDIE. We released a cardboard version. Cardboard is a little cardboard headset that you have, and you pop your telephone in there and you can actually have a virtual experience. We did a little snippet on that, and then we had the classroom scenario. And we had a real issue because people did the little snippet on the cardboard and they thought, that's it, I've done it, I've had the experience. And we thought, no, you haven't. And that is a concern, that people start thinking that technology is a gimmick and they just go with that when it's not. It's the learning and unpacking that learning. And so you need that whole workshop really where people can then start, okay, so this is what I've seen, this is what I'm doing in my workplace, how can I put those 2 together? What is it that I can do next? And at the end of the workshop, we actually leave people with an action list. I can go back to work and these are the things that I can do that will improve the way that I deliver care. And that's the important piece. You know, the experience is getting them there. It's a tool, but the end result is, how do I deliver better quality of care? That's the focus. Sorry, there are lots of things coming up. Do you want me to have a look at the chat or?
Sure, yeah. I mean, yeah, sure. Why not?
Okay,
Tanya, there were a couple of, hello, sorry.
Oh, yes, please, Carolyn. Yes, that would be great, please.
Yeah, there was a question that's disappeared now from Katie Packer that I think is a really good one. She asked about nausea and vestibular issues in participants who are using the virtual reality and how you've overcome that or what you do.
Yeah, you can't, essentially. So some people, and it's a very small number of people, if they have that vertigo or travel sickness, it is part of, potentially a problem for those people. What we've found is over the years, the technology has improved and that's become less of an issue. And look, we've delivered the EDIE workshops now across Australia to thousands and thousands of people. And honestly, I think we've only had 2 scenarios where people have been quite ill. But generally, it's not an issue for people. And as that technology improves, it's becoming less of an issue.
Thanks, Tanya. Colin Pudsey also asks whether you think the role of VR technology could improve the quality of life for people living with dementia by helping them to recall past memories, leading to benefits such as reduced aggression and improving interactions with caregivers or fellow residents.
Yeah, look, there hasn't been enough, in my mind, there hasn't been enough research around this. I know that people have done sort of small scale studies, but there hasn't been a massive study into this. It's probably something that needs to be done. But anecdotally, I'd say yes. It does appear to tap into those past experiences, and it does appear to make people, you know, happy and positive after the experience. As I said, I think it's just the important thing is how we introduce people, how they are cared for, you know, through that process of using the headset. But yeah, it can be a very powerful experience for people.
All right, thank you. There are a couple of questions about people wondering if this technology or these services will be available in the US and Canada.
So Talk with TED is online. So if you go to the Dementia Australia website and you go to Talk with TED, you can use that anywhere in the world. EDIE at the moment is not in the US, it's in Canada. And that's terrible. I can't recall now the name of the company in Canada. That's shocking. But it is available in Canada. If you Google EDIE in Canada, I'm sure it will come up. But in the US, no, not at the moment.
Thank you. I'm just trying to read some of these others. There was a question, Razib, about the recording and when it will be available. Can you answer that more explicitly?
Sure, yeah. We're going to download and timestamp the recording. So maybe within a week or so, we should have the recording ready, and we'll send it to you for sure. I just thought the back end of that. Alison, maybe you should introduce it to the US. You would be perfect. Anyway, I'm playing.
Kathy, you've got CDS, that's correct. It's CDS in Canada has the EDIE. Thank you. Alison, happy to talk.
Nice. Oh, nice.
Beautiful. Yes, I think that's all those questions covered. Somebody else has asked, I think, what else excites you in the virtual world, Tanya? You know, is there work that other people are doing that excites you in this area as well?
Geez. Look, one of the things that I think we don't do enough of is using this technology to engage children. You know, I look at kids that are not engaged at school, and, you know, I had a child that was one of those kids, and I thought, gosh, if they had used virtual reality to engage children in learning, it's mind-blowing. One of my children was, you know, a very big gamer as a child, and he actually enjoyed playing these strategic army games. So I mean, yes, there was some shooting in there, but it wasn't about the shooting. It was the strategy that really excited him. And they were based on historical wars. So, you know, you could be in the Second World War and you could actually try to change the outcome. But you needed to know the history to do well. And so he read a lot about history because of these games. And I thought, so that's a classic example of how you can excite children to get more interested in learning anything through virtual reality. We don't do it enough.
Thank you. I see a question. I don't know if it's been answered, or maybe I'm re-asking, and I apologize if I am. Ashley King asks whether you've explored or considered using EDIE with care partners. Have you already answered that question?
Oh, yes, sorry, we do. Sorry, no, I didn't answer that question. So you mean the family carer?
Yeah.
Yes, it is. So at Dementia Australia, we have, if you like, two service arms. One service arm is particularly for professional carers, but the other is for the person living with dementia and their family. And yes, they do use it with the care partners. They use it strategically. But I do remember being told by one of our counsellors that you know, normally in the family counselling session, she might have to go 6 weeks before people start to open up and talk about the issues. And what she found was if she introduced EDIE earlier on, people opened up earlier. She said once they had that experience, it seemed to give them permission to start talking more about the issues. I thought, wow, that's powerful to, you know, to go from 6 weeks to one session where people are opening up. Yeah, amazing.
Yeah, that is powerful indeed. Yeah, wow. Okay, now should we wrap up?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah. Okay. Hey, thanks so much. I really, you know, just that word passion that really comes through when you speak. It's lovely to see that. Yeah, just lovely to experience. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for the opportunity.
Oh, sure. It's our pleasure completely. Yeah. Hey, Carolyn, thanks so much for helping today.
Very welcome. I enjoyed it. Thank you.
Nice. Thanks everyone for joining. In 1 month's time, we're going to do the same thing again. And this time we're going to talk about something which I feel is really timely. It's not that it's something new, because actually when you look back at the research, right, going back to the 1980s, the research was saying involve people with dementia in decision-making around design of the nursing home. And really, I mean, I could just list a bunch of examples of situations where if people had done that, I would have seen nursing homes where, you know, the place was much better, you know, was just more functional and more pleasurable and made sense, you know. And this is really timely now because, for example, in Australia, you have this recommendation from the Royal Commission for Household Model, but you have the same pressure in many, many different countries. You know, an understanding that we have to move away from this kind of industrial scale, institutional feel, let go of a lot of these legacy ideas and move beyond, you know, seeing people as a diagnosis and really enact, you know, what that change means in perspective. So we speak to somebody called Florence Mathieu, who is from France, and she has a human-centered design background, and she's now recently been bringing that to redesigning nursing homes. And I think it's going to be a really great conversation, and I think it's really timely and important, the things that she has to say. So I hope that, you know, if you can't join the live session, that you'll listen to the recording and, you know, share, basically, because I think it's really important, the work that she's doing. Okay, now, hey, thank you, everyone. Thanks again, everyone.
Thank you.
Yeah, bye-bye.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.